Thank you so Thank you so much, Kobe, and thank you, Pamela, so much for that introduction. And we have our interpreters that are also here with us today. So thank you so much for being here. My name is Stephanie Knudsen, and I am from Connecticut Nurses Association. I'm one of the family child care nurse consultants, and I know that on the line as well, another of my colleagues, Saoni Ramirez, is also here. So welcome everyone, welcome family child care providers. I see that you are all coming in, and so we're so happy that you're here. So today, the title of today's session is the basics of health and safety practices in family child care. And so our learning objectives for today, or what we would like to really talk about today at the end of the session, this is what you should really walk away with. We're going to review some basic health and safety strategies, including cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting in family child care, describing characteristics of safe indoor and outdoor environments and practices in family child care, discussing screen time, best practices for children in family child care, and also describing some benefits of outdoor play for children in family child care. Next slide, please. So, as we're thinking about today is going to be this evening is going to be very interactive. We know that it's sort of the end of the day, but it's important that we talk to each other because our experiences as family childcare providers will really help each other as we just talk about what is happening in our family childcare, as well as what we use, strategies that we use with our children for their health and safety. So in other words, we're going to try to share in the chat as much as possible. We're going to talk about healthy behaviors. So let's start with this slide. Here we're talking about health and safety strategies in family childcare. So think about the way infections spread and why these healthy behaviors work. So in the chat, can we talk a little bit about each of these healthy behaviors? So for example, what does washing hands help to do? If you can share in the chat, and we're going to be very interactive. So let's start. Let's keep going. Let's start talking. What do we gain from washing our hands? I know you may have a little slow start, but I want to see you going. So let me start by giving you a little bit of a hint as to what I'm looking for. You know, when we wash our hands, we're removing germs from our hands so that they don't go into our eyes, nose, and mouth. And we're keeping from transferring germs from our hands to surfaces to be picked up by another person, right? So that's what washing hands does. And part of what I really wanted to talk about this evening, why are we even talking about health and safety strategies in family childcare? You know, much of these strategies that you're actually seeing on the screen, you know about these already, and you're practicing them in your family childcare. COVID-19 came about, and it's about 2 years now since COVID-19 has been with us. And so all the rules around COVID-19 has changed. Mask, no mask. What do we do about, we've had some vaccines now, but the message is about, when to isolate, when to quarantine. The messages have changed continuously. But one of the consistent messages in family childcare is in regards to some of the strategies that you see there on the screen. So even before COVID, we have been doing these really healthy practices. We've been doing them all along. Washing hands, for example, is one of the things that we teach our children to do to make sure that they wash their hands so that they can remove germs from their hands. So even in covering their cough, for example, is another one. So instead of spraying germs into the air to be breathed in by another person, Covering a cough traps them in your clothing, and that helps to minimize the amount of germs that's sprayed into the air. So these are some of the health and safety strategies that you have been using in your family childcare. Another one of them is cleaning, sanitizing, or disinfecting objects. And then, of course, vaccines. And the final one, staying home if you're sick. So when we wash, sanitize, and disinfect objects, what exactly are we doing when we do that? If you can share in the chat, why are we practicing these health and safety behaviors? Just share in the chat. What's the point of doing all these things? And I'd love to hear from you. So go ahead and share in the chat. You're warming up, but I want to make sure that folks are participating. So you can go to the chat and just type in your response, and then we can I can read the chat, even if you are delayed in sending that information through. Excuse me. So washing, sanitizing, and disinfecting objects. Well, don't forget that germs that are put into the air by coughing, sneezing, talking, or singing may land on surfaces. And so when you do cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting objects, this minimizes the germs that could get picked up by other people. So the point of doing all these health and safety strategies, washing hands, cleaning, sanitizing, or disinfecting objects, being vaccinated, and we'll come to that in just a moment, staying home if you're sick. These are all strategies to reduce the amount of germs that are put into the environment so that we can all stay really healthy and not pick up germs from other people. The other thing that we do is we also follow standard precautions. And that also means that, exposure to blood or other bodily fluids, we want to stay away from those. So some standard precautions, which means that as children, they may fall, they may have little scrapes, there may be some bleeding here and there, or they may have a little runny nose. Any of those, we're going to follow standard precautions, which just means that whenever we're going to touch any bodily fluids, we want to protect ourselves. We're going to use gloves. We're going to use their proper way of disposing materials. For example, when children sneeze into a Kleenex, they'll go ahead and dispose of that material, and those kind of strategies really help. And those are parts of the health and safety strategies that we have been using in family childcare, that you've been using in family childcare for a very long time, prior to COVID-19 and during COVID-19, and we'll continue those healthy practices even after COVID-19. So let's go to the next slide and start getting into a little bit into cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. So what's the difference between cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting? Well, cleaning is removing dirt and debris by scrubbing and washing with a detergent solution and then rinsing with water. A routine housekeeping schedule and procedures can really help reduce the spread of germs. And don't forget, when bleach is used, it should be diluted according to the manufacturer's instructions. Sanitizing. Sanitizing is reducing germs on inanimate surfaces to levels considered safe by public health codes or regulations. So, for example, on different surfaces such as tables, chairs, certain toys, maybe, sanitizing, again, helps to reduce those germs. Disinfecting is the most stringent amongst the three different types of cleaning. Disinfecting is destroying or inactivating most germs on an inanimate object, but not bacterial spores. So in other words, When you disinfect, it's really destroying those germs. Sanitizing reduces germs. Cleaning removes dirt and debris. So there may be times that different times, and depending on the situation, you may only need to clean. Other times, you may need to sanitize. And then still other times, you may need to disinfect. But when are you going to do those things? Well, one of the we have we have a handout that I prepared, and in those handouts I provided some resources where you can go to them and look after this presentation about routine cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. And this comes from Caring for Our Children. And you can follow that advice. There are details around, what should you clean, what should you routine cleaning, what you should sanitize, what you should disinfect. There's also an Appendix K in Caring for Our Children. And this is a schedule for cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. And it's a really wonderful chart, because in this chart, it'll tell you how often you should clean. When should you clean the toys? When should you clean tables, areas where the children eat, areas where the children sleep, your floors, carpets, a schedule for that. So it really helps. So this Appendix K, I've put that also in the handouts. Another link that I've provided is appropriate sanitizers or disinfectants. Because we know that with children, it's very important, with everyone really, it's very important that you have an appropriate sanitizer or disinfectant. And most importantly, whatever sanitizer or disinfectant you may use, it's important that you read the instructions. For some of the disinfectants or sanitizers, they'll give you instructions. For example, they'll say, make sure you clean the area first before you use a particular sanitizer. They may also say in the instructions that you need to spray that solution, let that solution sit maybe for a certain amount of time before you wipe that solution off. So it's really important that you read those instructions. Some sanitizers or disinfectant may not require that you spray it on and leave it there. You can probably spray it and wipe it away right away, wipe it off right away. However, again, it depends on those instructions. So cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting, whatever solutions you're going to be using, please be sure to read the manufacturer's instructions. Next slide, please. So we're going to, with the next slide, what we're going to do is we're going to play a short video. And on this video, the video is going to demonstrate some bleach mixing tutorial, just a few minutes. And I think it'll be very interesting for you to watch this. So I'm not sure that I can hear the English version of that. So I can't hear any sound. I'm not sure if others are hearing a sound. So maybe we can try going back to the beginning.
Can you hear me, Stephanie?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, but the sound's not coming through?
It is not coming through. Not at all.
Okay, let me try to, maybe I'll turn the interpretation off and see if that works.
Okay.
And we'll go back. Let's see. Let me know now if it works. Is it working now?
Not just yet. No, we're not hearing sound.
Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me see. Okay, all right, hold on. I have a suggestion. I'm gonna try one more. Let's see.
Of course.
Yes. Let's see. I think this should work now.
Okay. And these videos, you can always go to YouTube and look up these videos on cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. This video tutorial on bleach mixing and the 3-step, you more than likely, you can also look that up on YouTube. Go ahead, Kobe.
Okay, let's see. Let's see if it works now.
Okay.
Hello, I'm here to talk
Yes,
about
we can hear.
keeping our
Great.
childcare sites clean and healthy. One way to do this is by sanitizing and disinfecting when and where appropriate. Washington State Labor and Industries requires the use of protection when mixing bleach. You will need an apron, gloves, eye goggles. To prepare our solutions in a well-ventilated area, such as a laundry room or a utility room sink. Bleach should be made near an eye washing station. Other items you will need are a mixing container, a cup, some measuring spoons, a funnel, and some spray bottles. We recommend mixing the solution at the beginning of each day. Date the containers with something like masking tape and a felt pen, as I have done here. You will need plain bleach, splashless, powder, tablets, scented, or gels cannot be used. On the bleach bottle, look for the ingredient list to find the bleach concentration. Look for the word sodium hypochlorite. The bleach we're using today has a 6.25% concentration of sodium hypochlorite. Look at the recipe chart to see what your recipe is to use. Let's make our disinfectant. Disinfectant is used to clean up body fluids, bathroom, and diapering areas. I'm using a 2-gallon container with a spigot, and I have filled with 1 gallon of cool water. Pour some of your bleach in a smaller container. By doing this, it helps to prevent splashing of your bleach. For this recipe, for this solution, it calls for 3 tablespoons of bleach. We'll put the lid on this, give it a gentle shake. Now you're ready to fill your containers with as much solution as needed. Here's your disinfectant. Now for making a sanitizer. Sanitizer is used for food surfaces, kitchens, and classroom areas. And this quart has been filled with cool water. We'll add the funnel, and our label says that we need ½ teaspoon of bleach to 1 quart of cool water. We'll put this on here and give it a gentle stir. Now you have your sanitizer. Instructions and other materials for mixing bleach can be found on our King County Public Health website under the Child Care Health Program.
Thank you very much for that. In your handouts as well, we have that information so that you can see that bleach mixing tutorial that demonstrates for you a sanitizing solution and a disinfectant solution with bleach and water. You probably have that information already, but just as a refresher, you know, much of these items that we're going through we understand that you may already have this information. But as a, COVID-19 has just been at the forefront of everyone's minds. And so this presentation today, the basics of health and safety practices in family childcare, is just a reminder about all the wonderful practices that family childcare providers do in your family childcare businesses and in programs as well. And this is just one of the practices or processes that you may go through when you're mixing your sanitizing solution, your disinfectant solutions. But we just wanted to remind you, sometimes it's a good idea sometimes to go over the basics. And so that's what we're doing today. We'll provide other additional information, but just walking you through this as a reminder. As you can see, excuse me, as you can see on the screen, now that let's chat a little bit. I think you should be all warmed up by now. So how can family childcare providers clean these things? So we're talking about bedding, hard toys, soft surfaces and furniture, carpets and hard surface floors, tables, doors, and cabinet handles. These are some of the things that we're cleaning all the time in our family childcare home. So how do you clean these particular items that are on the screen? And you can share with us in the chat, just share some of the things that you do. We have a little cheat sheet, and so we've also linked it in your handouts. It's Appendix K. Caring for our children in Appendix K has some great information about when it is that you would clean, when it is that you would disinfect, and what it is that you and it also provides you with that schedule we talked about. It's that schedule for cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting chart. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat for everyone. So you can, if you want to multitask a little bit, that's the link that's directly to that cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting chart, or it's called Appendix K. And in Appendix K, it will give you a little bit of information about the different items that are there. So for example, some strategies. What about toys? Well, you will need to clean and sanitize toys. So for example, some strategies that family childcare providers use all the time, you can use a soiled bin to hold toys until they can be washed and sanitized, because during the day, you don't have time to go and sanitize as children, wash and clean and sanitize as children use toys, correct? But you can have a bin that's, you can label soiled. And so once the children use those toys, you can put those in the bin and wait for them to then be sanitized. Yes, Angelica. First I clean with water and soap, and after I disinfect. Fantastic, exactly right. You can also use a dishwasher to wash and sanitize toys. Perhaps you can use a nylon bag to contain the toys in the dishwasher, and then hanging up the bag with the toys in it so they can fully dry without having to handle each one. So that's another little strategy there. When it comes to bedding, what about bedding? Go ahead and throw some information in the chat and I'll talk through this one. You can use your washing machine and dryer to launder bedding, or you can send the child's bedding home with families to launder and return to the family childcare. Having extra bedding for those families who may forget to return the bedding they took home is a good idea. And what about soft toys and soft surfaces such as upholstered furniture? Accept soft toys that can be used by only one child before they're laundered in a washing machine. That's an idea. You can either launder soft toys at your family childcare, or again, send those personal toys home to be laundered. You can cover soft surfaces with removable, easily washed surfaces. so that they can throw those in the washing machine as well. Now, when it comes to carpets and hard surfaced floors, a scheduled cleaning when there will be enough time for the carpets to dry and when there are no children at the family childcare is a great strategy. Hard surfaced floors, tabletops, doors, and cabinet handles should also be cleaned and sanitized daily, as well as anytime they're soiled. So that's, how can you clean those things? Again, you can look for hints whether you should be cleaning, sanitizing, or disinfecting. If you go to that Appendix K in Caring for Our Children, it'll give you that information about exactly ideas about your routine cleaning, schedule for cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting, how often you should be cleaning your hard toys, soft toys, furniture, carpet, bedding, etc. It's a really great handout. Next slide, please. And Audrey's saying, I don't regularly use soft toys, but if I have them, I take them to the laundromat, get them laundered. Fantastic. Thank you, Audrey. That's a great idea. So let's start talking a little bit about now shifting from cleaning and sanitizing. We want to start talking about some health and safety strategies that we also practice, some other kinds of strategies that we practice within our family child care. Cleaning and sanitizing is one, but we're going to shift to another way that we keep children safe and healthy. So injuries are one of the things that we know in family child care and as early care and education providers, that they are in fact predictable and preventable. We know that injury is still the leading cause of death for children and teens in the United States. Yet many childhood injuries, as I've said before, are predictable and preventable. Importantly, family childcare providers can take action to prevent injuries in our family childcare environments by creating safe environments and actively supervising. In our next slide, we'll notice that you'll see several things listed. Some of these that are listed, you'll see 6 items that are listed that are described as non-fatal child injuries. The leading causes of child unintentional injury includes motor vehicle crashes, suffocations, drowns, poisonings, fires, and falls. And so we're going to go ahead and explore each one of these because as family childcare providers, we know that there are things that we can do in our environments to keep children safe and healthy. The next slide, please. Before we move on, let's talk about some of the characteristics of children that may increase their chances of getting injured. So I'm looking for folks to place things in the chat, okay? So in the chat, please share, why do young children have high rates of injuries? I'd love to hear from you. Why do they have high rates of injuries? And I'll start. You can go ahead and place that information in the chat. But in your experience, as you deal with young children that are learning to walk, that are being inquisitive about their environment, young children, as they are developing their coordination and body awareness, they oftentimes will fall. So we know that young children have high rates of injury simply because they're developing motor movement skills, aren't they? They also lack judgment. They do not understand yet what is dangerous. And they also lack the physical skills to move away from danger. For instance, if they're placed in a tub with scalding hot water, they cannot move themselves from the hot water. They just don't have that coordination as yet. And so that's why we oftentimes will see young children with high rates of injuries. Next slide, please. So in slide 10, so let's start talking about the first one. Remember, we described about 6 non-fatal childhood injuries: falls, suffocation, furniture and spaces, drowning, poison, and fire and burns. So the first one we're going to talk about is protecting children from falls. We know that children are curious and love to explore, but their motor skills are still developing. They can easily lose their balance, and they're still learning how to tell what is safe. As a result, young children have many falls. Family child care providers can protect children from falls by doing several things. And thank you for that, Angelica, because we leave things in places where they shouldn't be. Children need an environment free of risk. Exactly. At times we forget that children, they're stumbling over, they're starting to learn how to walk, and they're moving faster. So we may just moving about a little bit faster. So sometimes things are left out, and as a result can cause some injuries. But family childcare providers can protect children from falls by fastening the safety straps when children are sitting in a high chair or a bouncy seat or a swing or a stroller, and staying hands-on, always keeping a hand on a child while on an elevated surface like a changing table. Using equipment on the floor. For example, keeping infant seats or bouncy seats on the floor, not on a table or raised surface. Using safety gates. Using a safety gate not only at the bottom of a stair, but at the top of a stair as well. Other safety tips include keeping furniture away from windows so children do not climb on them and possibly fall out of an open window, and never depending on screens to keep children from crawling out of windows. Installing window locks so that windows open no more than 4 inches. And whenever possible, open windows from the top, not the bottom. Next slide. So we're going to go to another quick video. And while the video is being launched, every 24 minutes, tipped furniture or a falling TV sends an injured child to the emergency room. And between 2000 and 2006, Child Protective Services received reports of 134 tip-over related deaths involving children 5 years old and under. Children may try to climb on a shelf or a dresser or pull up on furniture while trying to stand or trying to reach for a favorite toy or other objects when that furniture topples over. So to prevent a tip-over tragedy, remember, fasten a bureau to the wall, keep bookshelves at a certain height, and ensure that televisions and other heavy objects cannot be pulled down or securely fastened to the wall. Go ahead and roll that video for us.
Oops. Uh-oh. Sorry.
Get on top of it before they do. Every 24 minutes, tipped furniture or a falling TV sends an injured child to the emergency room. Preventing tip-over incidents is easy, inexpensive, and only takes 5 minutes. Learn how to secure your furniture and TVs to protect children at anchorit.gov.
Thank you so much. And again, as you can see, anchorit.gov has really great resources. Again, that's anchorit.gov. If someone can place that in the chat for us, it really provides really great information, anchorit.gov. And that I believe is also in a handout. But if you can, ANCHOR, anchorit.gov, and that's in the chat. That's typed in correctly, but go ahead and put that. Anchorit.gov is a wonderful way to find out all the different things that you can do in your family childcare home to prevent things from falling and toppling over onto children. So I want to move to the next area, suffocation and airway obstruction. Airway obstruction is another leading cause of unintentional injury-related death among infants under age 1 and a major risk for children up to age 4. You know, young children, as we know, are vulnerable to airway obstruction because they have very small airways. They're also inexperienced chewers and like to put objects in their mouth as they use all of their senses to explore the world. This puts them at very high risk for suffocation, choking, or an airway obstruction. Airway obstruction applies to all the possibilities in which a piece of food or an object gets caught in a child's throat, causing the child to choke. Infants can't lift their heads or move about of dangerous positions. So they're also vulnerable to getting stuck in a position that inhibit their ability to breathe. Airway obstruction can lead to permanent brain damage and even death. So one of the things that we're going to want to do in the next slide, especially for our younger children, we're going to want to make sure when it comes to the infants, bare is best. Remember when they're sleeping, remember that what goes into the crib keeps the child safe as well. So bare is best. This means that it's best not to use a bumper pad, and family childcare providers should never place pillows or thick quilts in a baby's sleep environment. And in terms of choking, just remember to cut up those foods and different things into those small pieces so children can to prevent choking. In the next slide, there are many strangulation hazards, such as window cords, clothing, drawstrings, ribbons, necklaces, and pacifier strings that could possibly get wrapped around a child's neck and strangle him or her. So again, using cordless windows coverings is great, but if not, and you don't have those in your family childcare, there should be no loose cords on the front, side, or back of the product. On your screen, you'll see there's a video there. You can take a look at that. You're getting a handout as well. You can take a look at that after this webinar to take a look at some of those window cord safety strategies. Next slide. Choking hazards. Small objects can easily become lodged in the throat and obstruct the airway. This is the most common cause of choking in young children. So again, simply cutting food into 1/4 inch pieces for infants and 1/2 inch or smaller for toddlers, so that the pieces are small enough for children to safely swallow the food whole. That's a great strategy. Also, establish safety rules, such as at mealtime, your mealtime routine requires that children sit down when they're eating and not allow rough play at the table. It's also a good idea for an adult to be nearby and have basic first aid skills so that if the child does choke, immediate assistance can be provided. Next slide, please. So again, what can family childcare providers do? Well, we know that it's important for children to have toys that meet their developmental stage. The challenge, however, is making sure that kids stay safe. So some strategies include checking all toys frequently for loose or small parts, like sewn on eyes on a bear, moving small parts away from children during nap time, and teaching the older children how to help put away those toys. And then again, during mealtime, cutting up those foods. Again, for infants, a 1/4 inch, and toddlers, a 1/4 inch. That's a good way for them to have effective chewers and chewing. The next slide talks about drowning risks. You know, drowning can happen in a matter of seconds, and a child who falls in the water will quickly sink to the bottom and lose consciousness with little or no sound. Most children drown in the presence of a supervising adult and within a few feet of safety. Infants drown most frequently in the bathtub, while swimming pools pose the greatest risk to toddlers. And while family childcare providers, you may not bathe children in a tub or you may not have swimming pools, but you may have those wading pools during the summertime. So please be careful with those and make sure that there's always supervision happening whenever there's any body of water. Next slide, please. Again, what can family childcare providers do? We can't emphasize enough to always stay hands-on and use touch supervision whenever a child is in the bath or near any body of water. Adults should use touch supervision, again, whenever a child is in or near a body of water. Touch supervision means that an adult is always within arm's reach of a child. Ensure that children don't play in the bathroom, can prevent them from drowning in toilets. Use toilet bowl safety locks. That's one way to keep our toddlers and our very inquisitive children from trying to get into those toilets. Keep bathrooms locked so kids don't go in there alone as well. And routinely emptying buckets and pails used for household chores when you're done, and emptying wading pools are other ways that you can keep children safe. We know that if a child can get into something, they'll get into it. So making sure after you clean and all that good stuff, just empty those buckets right away. Next slide, please. So what about poisonous things? So in the chat, let's talk a little bit. And I'm hoping to hear from some folks what you may think. Oh, good. I love what you're saying there, Audrey. Lately, there are not many curtains and shades that do not have strings. Many times, children are not in the appropriate space. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's so important that those strings from those curtains and shades are put away. So let's turn our attention to what items are poisonous. So let's chat. In the chat, you see several things on the screen there. Daffodils, cosmetics, detergent, toilet bowl cleaner. Please, in the chat, just type in, what do you think, which of those do you think are poisonous? Do you think daffodils are poisonous? Cosmetics, dish washing soap, detergent? What do you think? Please share in the chat there. Yes, I see medicines. Yes, cleaning products. Someone is saying all of the products that are on the screen there are poisonous. So I see that many of you are identifying toilet bowl cleaner, detergent, and some of you have even selected daffodils. And yes, these are all poisons that can be found in the home environment. So what as family childcare providers, what do we need to know? Next slide, please. Very important. You should, as family childcare providers, you should know how to call the poison helpline if you believe a child has been poisoned, or if you want to find out whether a substance may be harmful. For example, if you go to the screen prior to that, before you get to that screen, Oh, actually, that's great. Never mind. You're on the right screen. Yes. I'm ahead of myself here. You'll notice that on the screen, right? You see those candy that look just like those beautiful flowers. Children, some poisons items come in these brightly colored packaging and resembles items that a child may think is a treat. The one on the left are obviously pieces of candy, and the one on the right are flowers. The two look very similar to a young child. And most children, at a young age, really they cannot tell the difference between the orange color, say, of a cleaning product and that of an orange drink. So another example are those pods for dishwashers and laundry that are so poisonous, but children may think that they're edible. And since poisons come in many forms and can be found both indoors and outdoors, it's going to be very important that we make sure that we put those things away. Poisons can enter the body from eating, drinking, touching, or smelling them. So we always need to be really careful about that. And as you can see, we use many items in our everyday lives that can be poisonous to a young child. Children learn by imitation and they copy adults when they see them using medicines, cosmetics, or other substances that could potentially be poisonous. So for example, some things like medicine can make you sick if you take someone else's medicine or take too much of that medicine. So it's important to remember that child-resistant packaging on medication is not child-proof. Always store medicines up and away and out of reach of all children. And as a reminder, families should bring medications to your family child care in their original containers. Next slide, please. So, as family child care providers, you should know how to call the poison helpline, and that number is right there on the screen, 1-800-222-1222. And they're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even if you would like to find out whether a substance may be harmful, you can give them a call as well. Poison Control Center, remember to keep that number in a central location, or you can add it to your cell phone list of contacts to make it accessible during an emergency. So if you don't have that in your phone right now, go ahead and program that in your phone. Poison Control Center, 1-800-222-1222. You always want to have that number when you need it. But even if you don't need it right away and you just want to find out about something, please use that number. Next slide, please. Fires and burns. And another, yes, certain plants or foods cause allergies. Yes, they sure do. So let's talk about fires and burns. These are a leading cause of injury-related deaths to children. Every day, at least one child dies from a home fire, and every hour, approximately 14 children are injured from fires or burns. 90% of all fire-related deaths are due to home fires, which spread rapidly and can leave families with as little as 2 minutes to escape once an alarm sounds. Children can also suffer serious burns that may limit their movement and cause scarring. Next slide, please. Many ordinary things in the home, from bath water and hot food to electrical outlets, can cause childhood burns. A child's skin is much thinner than an adult's and can burn at temperatures that adults would find comfortable. So setting your water heater at or below 120 degrees Fahrenheit is one way to protect children from burns. Tap water burns most often occur in the bathtub and tend to be more severe because they cover a larger portion of the child's body than other types of scalding. That is why it's important for family childcare providers to always test the temperature of water before using it on children. Other safety tips for burns includes placing hot foods and liquids in the center of a table or at the back of a counter so that they're harder to reach. We know that as babies are starting to walk and crawl and pull up, they also are going to try to reach. Turning those pot handles towards the back of the stove so that they can't be grabbed. Not holding a baby or a small child while you're cooking or drinking or carrying drinking hot foods or liquids, such as your coffee. And in that picture, you see how easily it can be to just put your coffee cup down, and then a toddler can just go and reach and get burned from that. Never heating baby bottles in a microwave. It's best to use warm water from the faucet instead. And again, never letting a child remove any food from the microwave or leaving children alone in the kitchen while you may be cooking. Next slide, please. So some fire safety checklists that we may have in your handout. I've also provided you with examples of some checklists that you may find helpful. So some fire safety strategies that you can use are smoke alarms, but it's really important, working smoke alarms. These reduce the chances of dying in the fire by nearly 50%. But remember, again, in order for smoke alarms to be effective, they have to work properly. Smoke alarms should be in every sleeping area and on every level of a home. Checking those batteries in smoke alarms at least twice a year when we change our clocks is one good way to remember to do that. So we just changed our clocks a couple weeks ago. So did you remember to check your smoke alarm batteries? Don't forget to do that. Cooking equipment is the leading cause of home fires. So it's recommended that smoke alarms be placed at least 10 feet away from cooking appliances. Your carbon monoxide detectors also save lives, as carbon monoxide is an odorless, invisible gas that can't be seen or smelled. Candle lighter and matches safety. Just make sure that you keep those out of reach of children. Remember, children always want to mimic what adults do. So they will try to, if you have adults in your home who smoke, or remember to keep those cigarettes, matches, lighters, and other smoking materials out of reach of children in a locked cabinet, and always dispose of cigarettes properly. It's a really good idea to create a kid-free zone of at least 3 feet around open fire and heat sources, such as stoves, fireplaces, and wood-burning stoves, space heaters, and grills. And I know we're getting into the summer now, but it's still pretty cold in Connecticut. So just be careful with those space heaters and grills that you may have. Next slide, please. So moving our attention to health and safety, so far in our discussions, our first part, we talked about some health and safety in terms of how can we stop the spread of germs. And we talked about cleaning and sanitizing. We talked about all those kinds of things. Then we shifted our attention in this discussion to talk about some of how we can protect children from injuries with, falls and burns, and how we can, as family childcare providers, prevent those basic, actually engage in health and safety strategies. But this is another health and safety message that we need to turn our attention to. Children and adolescents spend a lot of time watching screens, including smartphones, tablets, gaming consoles, TV, and computers. And on the average, children ages 8 through 12 in the United States spend 4 to 6 hours a day watching or using screens. And our teenagers spend up to 9 hours. And while screens can entertain, teach, and keep children occupied, Too much use may lead to problems, including sleep problems, lower grades in schools, reading fewer books, less time with their friends, not enough outdoor or physical activity, even weight problems and mood problems, poor self-image and body image issues, and less time learning other ways to relax and have fun. So next slide, please. So what are some best practices for screen time for children? Well, children are never too young to have a screen time plan. So the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry made these recommendations. Until 18 months of age, limit screen use to video chatting along with an adult. So an adult needs to be there with those less than 18 months of age. Between 18 and 24 months of age, screen time should be limited to watching educational programming with a caregiver. And then for children ages 2 to 5, limit non-educational screen time to about 1 hour per weekday and 3 hours on the weekend days. And for ages 6 and older, encourage healthy habits and limit activities that include screens. So you can find additional information. We've also placed some resources in the handout. You can check them out as well. Next slide, please. So when should we try to avoid screen time with children? Some best practice includes turning off all screens during meals and during outings. So when the children go for a walk, when you take them for a walk, they should not have, for example, try to avoid giving them your phone so that they can look at a screen. They should be enjoying the outdoors. Also learning about and using those parental controls, just making sure that your toddlers and younger children or younger children are not able to turn those screens on and off. Avoid using screens as pacifiers, babysitters, or to stop a tantrum. Turning off screens and removing them from where children sleep 30 to 60 minutes before nap time, and certainly turning off those screens during nap time. Next slide, please. Health and safety includes outdoor play. With screens, part of, we know that, during the winter time, there may be times when it's very cold outside, and sometimes you may have some families that may be uncomfortable or may not understand that outdoor play for children in any of the seasons can be very helpful for children. So we know that outdoor play offers children important health and developmental benefits. Young children, including infants and toddlers, benefit from spending time outdoors. Children are more likely to engage in the kind of vigorous physical play that strengthens their hearts, lungs, and muscles because they tend to play harder and for longer periods of time when they are outside. Also, regularly spending time outdoors increases opportunities to practice crawling and toddling and walking and climbing and just running freely. And it helps to improve those large motor skills and vigorous physical activity, which improves children's overall fitness levels. Outdoor play and exploration also strengthens children's learning, and it helps them to increase creativity, imagination, as well as social interactions between each other. So outdoor play is fantastic for children. Next slide, please. To support all these great healthy benefits, family childcare providers, you can take action for home safety outdoors, active supervision, staying current with your first aid and CPR, receiving training, training and any kind of training you may need, safe your toys and equipment, making sure you have toys and equipment for children to play, and just providing those safe outdoor spaces and checking in on the weather. Next slide, please. So what is active supervision? We're exploring each of these actions for home safety outdoors. Well, the first action, active supervision. This is a strategy that helps to ensure safety and positive play experiences for children. And since children should never be left unattended, active supervision by family child care providers requires focused attention and intentional observation. So some of the strategies to actively supervise children while they're outdoors include placing yourself so that you can see and hear all the children, watching, counting, and listening at all times, setting up the outdoor play environment so that it allows you to supervise by sight and sound. It's also important to mention that according to Connecticut's family child care regulations, monitoring devices cannot replace supervision by family child care providers. I know I don't need to say that, but for example, those monitors, those baby monitors cannot be used as an active supervision. That cannot replace supervision by family child care providers. Next slide, please. Monitoring for safe weather-related conditions. Remember I talked about some families may be a little bit nervous about having their children outside during different kinds of weathers, but family child care providers, you can monitor weather-related conditions and adjust your outdoor time accordingly to protect children from harm caused by adverse weather. Those two resources that are on your screen there, Child Care Weather Watch, you can get great information about, it'll provide you with information about when outdoor play may not be appropriate, and also for air quality. That link there, www.airnow.gov, it monitors air quality and it can let you know give you information about air quality and when it's good for you to be outside or not. So these resources can really provide you with great information about when you can go outside, when it's safe to go outside versus when it's not so safe to go outside. Next slide, please. So now we want to talk about creating safe and stimulating outdoor play spaces. We know that you as family child care providers, you take great care in creating and monitoring safe and fun outdoor spaces. And this includes picking out spaces outside that are safe and then installing age-appropriate equipment, materials, and supplies. We know that children of different ages have different developmental needs and abilities. So including a variety of outdoor play equipment is important so that everyone can have fun while being safe. So some general safety tips for ensuring that children can have a really fun time and be safe outside is remembering to cover those sand boxes when not in use, so animals will not use them as a litter box. Also, providing some shade in the play space, either from natural resources like trees or from a tent or an awning or other kind of shelter when it gets really hot in the summertime. Placing metal playground equipment such as platforms and slides in a shade to prevent burns as well. Because remember, those metal playground equipment can get really hot in the summertime. Never attaching any ropes or cords to play equipment, as they can be a safety issue. And safely anchoring to the ground permanent outdoor equipment such as swing sets or climbers. Removing gas grills from outdoor play areas, keeping gates closed, and installing child-proof latches. Also, don't forget to lock those storage sheds, barns, and garages that you may have in your outdoor spaces. Next slide, please. So I'd love to hear from you again. What kinds of outdoor play activities do you plan for your children? Family childcare providers, I would really love to hear from you. What are some of those outdoor activities that you plan for your children? Go ahead and pop that in the chat as we move to the next slide. So in addition to those wonderful activities, outdoor play activities, do you have swings? Yes. Sledding. Gilda, yes. Children love sledding. That's fantastic. Any other ideas? What are some of those outdoor activities that you plan for your children? Does anyone provide? Yes, please go ahead.
Water table.
Okay.
Yes, water tables. What about gardening? Does anyone garden? That's another great idea so that children can watch different things grow. You can certainly pick out certain things for those outdoor activities. Yes. So let's go to our next slide. And you can continue popping things in the chat because we'd love to hear from you about those activities so we can share them with each other. So what should family child care providers inspect? Well, inspection of outdoor play areas, surfaces, and equipment should be part of your regular routine. So let's talk first about your play areas. It's important that you inspect your equipment, surfaces, and toys before they're used by children. And if they're broken, worn, or if they're missing parts, they need to be removed, repaired, or replaced. And then what about those surfaces and equipment? You know, falls are the #1 cause of injuries for children, and outdoor play spaces are included in the places where they occur. So in addition to active supervision and, of course, proper spacing, the surface or ground under and around those age-appropriate structures and equipment need to be soft enough to cushion a fall. So if there is improper surfacing material under playground equipment, that is a leading cause of playground-related injuries. Therefore, please incorporate age-appropriate structures with shock-absorbing surfacing when you're planning, in your safe planning for outdoor play. Also, ensure that equipment and structures are properly installed initially and then maintained on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So take a look at the screen that's there, and I'm curious. Please go ahead and put it in the chat. Please answer that question on the screen. What is the recommended amount of physical activity for toddlers in a full daycare? So for your toddlers, what's a recommended amount of physical activity that they need to get during the day? And while you're answering that in the chat, I see finger painting, coloring. Yes, go ahead, please. I also see that you're having for some outdoor, you're playing some musical instruments outdoors. That is fantastic. So I'm looking in the chat and I'm seeing that we are putting in the chat maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour. So we're talking yes. So I can if we can so we're looking at our screen's moving around a little bit.
Sorry, something's happening. Give me 1 sec.
Oh, that's okay. But while we're thinking about it, you can in the chat, everyone, how many minutes? What is a recommended amount of physical activity that toddlers, now remember these are toddlers. Do you think half an hour, 60 minutes, 120 minutes, 15 minutes? Tell me what you think. How many minutes What is a recommended amount of physical activity for toddlers in full daycare? I'm seeing someone is saying 35 minutes. Another person saying 30 to 45 minutes. Well, keep going. Okay, keep going. Well, I want to ask another question. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to give the answers in just a moment, but what about our preschoolers? What is their recommended amount of physical activity that preschoolers should have? Go ahead and put that in the chat. What do you think? For our preschoolers, half an hour, 1 hour, 90 minutes. Go ahead and type that in the chat. We asked first about our toddlers. Now we're asking about our preschoolers. What do you think? An hour and 40 minutes. Okay, thank you, Lucy. Let's go to the next slide for the answer. Well, there's your answer. According to best practices, all children require physical activities. So starting with infants, they need short, supervised periods of tummy time several times a day. And for both toddlers and preschoolers, it's important that providers provide active playtime every day, both indoor and outdoor. So for toddlers, it should be 60 to 90 minutes or more. And if they're only there for a half a day, half of that, 30 minutes or more. And for our preschoolers, 120 minutes or more. So we're talking about at least an hour and a half. So make sure, and also if you have children with special needs, please make sure that those children can also participate in activities as well. Next slide, please. So what's the big deal about physical activity? Well, there are wonderful benefits that will really carry through the lifespan. So the first benefit is listed on the screen. In childhood, physical activity helps children stay at a healthy weight. They can develop motor skills and build their strength, flexibility, and endurance. And they can develop and maintain strong bones. That's what we want. And then in adulthood, physical activity habits that we learned in early childhood can last a lifetime. So those are some of the benefits of physical activity. Next slide, please. Other benefits of...
I think we have a question. Someone has their hand raised. I don't know.
Oh, yes, please go ahead. Does someone have a question? Please unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, I have a question. I don't see my name in the list with the other people.
Okay, so what we'll do is Pamela will be able to help you with making sure that you can have your names in the attendance there. If you look under participants, sometimes you can scroll all the way through and you can see your name, or you can rename yourself so that you can see your name as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can he?
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Can he type his information in the chat, please?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I can do that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit more about benefits of physical activity. If we go to the, yes, that's the slide. Those physical activity, I tell you, it really helps children with that, so improve your social skills and brain development in children. So needed. It helps children feel more confident about themselves and their bodies. It also helps to decrease feeling stressed or depressed. During this pandemic, children have also been feeling the stress of everything that is happening. And giving that physical activity, getting them outside to just run around and play is so important for them. It also helps children sleep better. And studies have shown that fewer behavioral and disciplinary problems, that they do better in school, and they have longer attention span in class. So physical activity for children, indoors and outdoors, is so important. Next slide, please. So there are two kinds of physical activity. There's structured and unstructured. Structured activities, and you can provide both structured and unstructured. Structured activity basically means any daily activity that's led by you, the family child care provider, is developmentally appropriate, it's fun, and it's planned. Unstructured activity is just free play that children can engage in. In other words, when children can play whatever they like to do, dress up dolls, play with their cars in a safe environment, and you providing them with those choices, that's unstructured play. So children can have both structured and unstructured play, and that's good for them to use their imagination. Next slide, please. So where can children play? Very important to make sure the play space is safe. So go out, again, going outdoors as much as possible, regardless of the weather, but just check those weather information as well. So be warm weather ready. Summer's coming, and when it's hot outside, remember to ask parents to bring in those sunscreens. Also keep your children hydrated, and playing outside. You can play outside even when it's chilly or when it's snowing. You can absolutely do that, as long as you have children come prepared, letting families know you need those snow-proof pants and coats and mittens and hats and scarves to keep them cozy while they're outside. And when it becomes too dangerous to be outside, for example, if it's lightning and thundering, you want to stay inside. But then having those indoor options in your home so that children can absolutely still have fun and keep active as well. Next slide, please. And then again, keeping infants active. Remember those tummy time we talked about? Allowing babies to interact and play while awake and on their tummies. This prepares babies for sliding on their bellies and crawling. This should be done 2 or 3 times a day. So begin with about 3 or 5 minutes at a time. And when you see the infant is enjoying the activity, gradually increase the time. Next slide, please. So encourage your infants to see, touch, and feel what's around them. Place different toys in a circle around the baby and let the baby reach for them. Reaching helps the baby develop muscles to roll over, crawl, and scoot. But you know that already, family child care providers. And always make sure infants have tummy time when they're awake and alert. Place infants on a solid surface on the floor, never on a surface that's soft or up high like a mattress or on a sofa. And not all babies are going to enjoy tummy time the first time. So try putting their favorite toys just out of reach. A great time to do tummy time is following a diaper change or when the baby wakes up from a nap. So everyone gets to get some physical activity in as well. So here we are at the end of this time. We provided you with some resources. If you go to the next slide, and you'll get those handouts, resources as well. And I just want to thank you so much for your time. We know we've left a few minutes because there, I believe, Pamela and your representatives from All Our Kin has some information they'd like to share with you. So you can go ahead and do that now. You can go to the next slide. I just want to thank you so much for hanging in there with us. We know you've had a long day. So yes, you've had a long day. So we're going to share some additional information at this time.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for that wonderful presentation. I don't know if we wanted to take just like a minute to see if there's any additional questions before we moved on.
Sure. We'd love to have questions. You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
Are we good? Hello?
Yes.
Are we gonna get a certificate for that?
So your Family Childcare Network can provide you with some additional information about that. We're not going to provide a certificate, but certainly your Family Childcare Network. Do you have some questions? Do you have an answer for our participant?
Yeah, you will get a certificate at the end if
Oh, yes, you will.
attended for half the time of the presentation. So yes, you will. Is there any other questions?
I wish to
Sí, yo tengo una pregunta. Yo quisiera saber, con todo eso de la pandemia, yo escuchaba que había agencias que venían a desinfectar los lugares de cuidado. Yo quiero saber si ellos son recomendados, ya que uno tiene infantes y niños más grandecitos, ¿no? Quisiera saber si corre peligro o qué necesito saber para yo ocurrir a uno de esos, ¿no? A cualquier momento.
So I don't have that information. I can certainly find out that information and get it back to your network leader to provide you with that information. But I'm not, I don't have that specific information for you. In terms of cleaning your family childcare, the cleaning is not going to be cleaning, disinfecting, or sanitizing. It's basically the same procedures that you have been using all along. You may have needed to clean more frequently, but the procedures really haven't changed. But in terms of support from an agency who can help with cleaning the family childcare, I don't have that information, but I'll certainly look it up and provide that to your family childcare provider, your network leader. Does that sound okay?
Stephanie, can you hear me?
Gracias.
Yes.
Buenas tardes. Sobre esa pregunta, yo le puedo dar ella tendría que llamar al Departamento de Salud Pública y constatar ahí si esa compañía está autorizada para hacer la limpieza y los insumos que utiliza para la limpieza.
Stephanie, I can also add to that. This is Saoni. I can tell her in Spanish.
Oh, one.
Yo soy la que trabaja con Stephanie y como le acaban de decir, tiene que confirmar que la compañía esté acreditada para brindarle servicio a usted. También es bueno que tengan en mente que aunque la compañía esté acreditada para brindarle servicios, ustedes tienen que mantener una limpieza diaria en sus cuidados, que aunque la compañía directamente le haga una limpieza profunda, diariamente ustedes tienen que tomar las precauciones debidas para mantener su centro limpio y de acuerdo a las regulaciones que el Estado le pide. Okay, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? Okay. All righty.
Great.
So
Thank
Can we
then,
take the booster again? The fourth booster.
I'm sorry, say someone is asking a question again? I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that.
Do we have to take the fourth booster?
So at this time, the fourth booster is not a mandatory requirement. One of the things that I would also like to, I'd also like to, I want to place in the chat for you. There's some wonderful frequently asked questions around COVID for family childcare. And I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the chat. And it provides you with really great information around up-to-date information about that link. I just played that in the chat for everyone. Frequently asked questions about childcare during COVID-19 and guidance about what vaccines you may need to get or not. So at this time, that is not a mandatory requirement for family childcare providers. A fourth vaccine. That information could change because things are changing all the time, but that is the information I have so far. And I've also placed that link just to make sure that you have up-to-date information from the Office of Early Childhood about childcare and COVID-19 frequently asked questions. Any other questions that you may have?
Stephanie, Lucina wants to know where we can find all the handouts today.
So I provided those handouts and a copy of the presentation to your network leader, who will be forwarding that information to the attendees tonight. So you'll get a copy tonight. Yes.
Aida, voy a poner el link otra vez que Stephanie compartió.
Eloy, the question, please.
Does someone have another question?
Yo, una pregunta, por favor. Aquí dice, necesitamos su
Okay.
ayuda. Complete un acuerdo para confirmar su participación. ¿Usted puede participar y firmar acuerdos con más de una red de FCC? ¿Cómo es eso? ¿Me explica, por favor?
Yeah, that's actually what we were just finishing up the questions, and I was about to just explain this now. So basically what this is the OEC has these formal family childcare networks now, and All Our Kin is part of the OEC FCC networks. So in order to kind of, continue to offer services of workshops and toolkit and coaching, we're looking for educators to sign this agreement form to confirm that you still want to be a part of the All Our Kin network and participate. And so whenever Pam gets a chance, she's going to drop those forms in the chat. There's an English one and a Spanish one. And that just confirms that you just want to continue to be able to participate in All Our Kin and all the different services that we have. So it lets the Office of Early Childhood know that, we have a robust network and people are participating.
The link is in the chat, available to everyone.
Una pregunta, ¿lo van a poner ahorita? ¿Hay que llenarlo ahorita?
Yes, they're both. You could fill it out whenever you'd like to. It might be easier to just fill it out now, but Pam just dropped both the links, one in English and one in Spanish into the chat. And if you filled it out already, you don't have to do it again. But if this is new to you and you didn't know about it, please fill it out. Great. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. And thank you, Stephanie, for your wonderful presentation on health and safety. Thanks to Juanita and Belen for interpreting this evening, and for Pamela for being here and supporting us and helping us in the chat. I hope you all have a great evening. And those who have been here, you'll receive a certificate. We'll send out all of the handouts that Stephanie spoke about throughout the evening. And yeah, have a great night.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for participating.
Muchas gracias.
Buenas noches.
Gracias. Me encantó.
Muy buenas noches. Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Buenas noches.
La traducción estuvo buenísima. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Juanita. Thank you.
Gracias.